So at the wrap up of my last video, which was trying to move the Dell into that Antec case, I mentioned that that case is actually going to be used for something else. My buddy Ben is going to need a computer for some day trading, so he needs something that doesn't have to be really that powerful in CPU, but it does have to be able to handle 6 monitors. Now he's got the video card and all that stuff on order, all the cables, and we're going to help him get all that stuff set up. But it'll be my job to go ahead and build the actual computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to set them up with a 4-core, 8-thread Ryzen 4350, and I'll show you all this in just a second. We're going to go ahead and build it, get it ready. I'm going to test it out, make sure it works, and then we're going to head and get things the rest of the way set up. Today what we're going to do is I'm going to actually build the PC and test it out, and then we'll get with him later and finish it up, set it up, and get him going that way. But today, like I said, just concentrating on the build itself. So we're going to kick all these things off, and I'll show you what we're going to put in it. But today we're just concentrating on building out the computer and testing it to make sure that it's going to work when we put the rest of the parts, like the video card that he's getting and that setup. So starting things off, Asus Prime B450M. It's a mid ATX board. It should be fine. It's got 4 DIMM slots in it. It should handle the Ryzen 3 Pro 4350G that we're going to put in it. That name doesn't sound familiar to you. That's all right. I did a review, or I did a couple videos on this channel about this CPU. It's a 4-core, 8-thread, very sturdy CPU with a GPU included in it. This is the one that I got that when I ordered it, DHL had to bring it the long way around. So should be really solid. This is going to be just a little bit better than the 3100 that I put in my friend Chelsea's computer, and it's also got graphics on it just in case for some reason he needs it, or he's got problems or issues with his setup. We can troubleshoot by means of that graphics that's on there. The SSD that we're going to put in it, TeamGroup. I've used this MP33 type SSD before. It's an NVMe drive. It's been great. It's a workhorse. I put it in a couple of different computers, including the Intel test bed that I've got. I put it in Chelsea's computer. Now we're going to put one in Ben's computer. This happens to be 500 gig. I did have to order this because I thought I had one and I didn't, so I had to order it. All right, Corsair Vengeance. There's 16 gig kick running at 3200 speed. 3200 seems to be about the sweet spot for this. 32 to 3600. The 3600 still is not quite the same price. I can get this a little bit cheaper, and I did. This happens to be low profile, not that we need it, but I did think for a hot second about trying to put this in Danny D and using the Ripjaws 5 or the Ripjaws V memory that was in there in his build, but I figured I've already got some brand new parts. Let's go ahead and keep it going. The case is going to be that MX400 from Antec. We started building the Dell in that. We're going to go back and we're going to go ahead and make everything right in this one, so we'll be able to talk about that case a little bit more in a little bit better detail, where I don't feel like I'm rushed or feel like it was all just like, I got to redo it anyway. I'll give you some of the advantages and disadvantages I find when I'm building in that case, some of the benefits that it's going to give to him as far as just the simplicity of it working. It does have a little bit of RGB, not that he needs RGB, but at least it's going to look nice. For the power supply, we're going to use a Thermaltake 650 watt or 650 watt. This thing has been tried and true. It is probably the oldest part of the build that we're doing, but it's only a couple years old, and for the past year or so I haven't really used it because it was in my gaming computer, and I've been using IM number 4 instead of Son of Fred, so it's been sitting there idle for the better part of a year not being used. And so really it's only had a year's worth of life on I believe it's either a 3 or 5 year warranty. It's a sturdy power supply. It's not going to give us any problems. And if it does, we'll give them another one. But I feel pretty sure that we're going to be able to do all this. Most of these parts, I had a couple of these because I ordered them over the past 6 months to a year, like the processor I ordered last year, the motherboard I ordered a couple months ago. And so we're going to put everything together, brand new parts, and get them going and get things set up and have them rocking and rolling. And this is, you guessed it, bad montage time. So we're going to go through this just a little bit. I really, really liked working in this case. I cannot tell you enough how easy this case was to just route cables in. It seemed to have tie downs at all the right spots. There wasn't any kind of issue. It had plenty of hardware that was included for the extra posts, because the last motherboard I had in there, I only used a couple of posts. I had to use more for this motherboard. It was a little bit larger. All that came included, all the screws, everything. And you would think, oh, well, that's, that should normally come. Yeah, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to figure that stuff out. All this was laid out. All this came together. It's a smart design for the most part. It allows you to put 3 extra fans in the front. It's got a filter on top. It's a magnetic filter. It's got USB 3 on the front. It's got USB 2 on the front. It's got audio on the front. It has a reset switch and a power switch, and even a switch to change the color of the LEDs that are in there right now. It's got several different patterns. I'm not going to go all through all that, and I don't know if Ben's going to need to change that or not. But the option is there if he chooses to. So that's always good. Very, very easy to build in here. I didn't have any kind of issue with space or where I wanted to hold the line up or anything like that. It all worked out very, very well. And this Antec case is definitely something I will buy for a future build, because I like the way it looked, and I like the way I was able to tie things down and not have any kind of issues. I mean, it's got that little raceway that's on the near the front, on the back side of the tray, near the front of the case. There's a raceway that's deep enough to hide all those cables, and it worked out really, really well. Very, very happy with that case. The only thing that I'm not sure if I quite liked about the case was that you have to kind of use a couple of the slots for the GPU are actually removable, and you can put them back, and the other ones you have to actually kind of break out. But on Antec's side, in their defense, in the kit, in the little box that has all the screws and everything, they include a couple of extra of those filler slots, or those slot fillers. So even if you have to break something out that later you need to go put back in, you don't have to go looking for or try to find something to put in there, because they include it. You can put one of theirs that they already send you back in. So that was, I mean, somebody had to be thinking there. Antec, I really, really like this case, and I'm going to go back. I haven't done any kind of review or haven't done anything on Amazon where I rated this case. I'm going to go back and give it a solid 5 stars, because I liked building in it. It was fairly inexpensive, and it was what I expected it to be for the price. Easy to build in. I would recommend it. MX400 by Antec. If you guys haven't seen it, or you're looking for it, looking for something affordable that's not going to break the bank and it's going to be easy to build in, did very, very well. All the rest of the components and parts, obviously the GPU, we're going to put his GPU in there. I'm just using that 1660 to test, which did lead me to something else. I did realize that after I put that in there and started running a bunch of benchmarks, and we'll get to that in just a moment, and I'll kind of show you where all that falls. But when I started doing that, I noticed it was heating up just a little bit, especially on the glass panel. I could put my hand up against there and feel it a little bit warm. A deal breaker, totally hot, out of control? No, not at all. But I did find that by putting an extra case fan in the front to kind of move some of that air through, it cooled everything right down. It was beautiful, and it actually added a frame or two per second to my tests by putting that other fan in there. So it did cool it down enough where it did make a measurable difference. I was pretty happy with that. I can only imagine if you throw this thing full of fans. It's got a space in the back for 1, 2 in the top, 3 in the front. It will fit an AIO or multiple AIOs, I believe. I believe there's enough room in there. I know there's enough room in the front. Yeah, all the rest of the components and parts worked out very well. I put a notebook drive in the back where one of the SSD slots was. The other one is an NVMe that's right on the board itself. He's not going to have any kind of problems with storage for what he needs. He probably won't ever use or fill up half of that 500 gig that he has on the motherboard. But the other one's just for if he has pictures, photos, whatever he needs to keep, then he's got something that's not going to interfere with the work he's doing already. So that will work out just fine for him. All in all, this build went together very well. And when compared to the other, when I did the Ryzen 3 3100 and I did the Intel i3 10105F, we'll go through these, but all these are fairly comparable. All this sits about where you would expect a 4-core 8-thread with a 1660 in it. They're all within, say, a frame or two of each other. I measured all these at 1080p high. I went through from Shadow of the Tomb Raider all the way through to Horizon Zero Dawn, and I'll kind of go through this as I'm talking. But all of these were within a couple of frames. All of these are where you would expect. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, maybe right in the middle, but all of these, it's a very, very solid showing for this 4350 Pro, 4350G. The one thing that this has that those two do not have are the graphics that are on board, if he should ever need to use that. One thing that I did not mention when we were talking about budget CPUs, the reason why this was not included is because I was talking about CPUs that you could get for $150 or less, and this one was about $180 when I ordered it. It's now down there, it's getting down there in that range, but there are other options you can get that are just as inexpensive as this, and they're more readily available. So while this is not a bad deal at all, this 4350G has gotten where it's now a pretty good buy. There's also some other pretty good buys that are in the same price range that are going to be just as good. So it just depends on availability. And don't be afraid of getting a 4-core 8-thread CPU. Go out and get your Ryzen 3 or an i3 from Intel if you need it. Solid processors. You don't have to be afraid of it being a budget processor anymore. It's more than enough, more than capable enough to do gaming. Like in his case, he's going to be doing regular office work and day trading type things, and it's more than capable of being able to hold up and do a very, very good job at that. So the next thing we're actually going to do is test the video card that he bought to put in here. We recommended something that would be able to handle 6 screens. Evidently, Radeon is better than NVIDIA at that. And the actual card that we got is an HD 7750. There we go. It's a little bit hard to see. There we go. A little bit of reflection. Sorry about that. But anyway, this is the one that we're going to be taking care of next. We will have to take some drivers off that have the NVIDIA drivers right now for that video card that's in there. We'll have to install the AMD drivers, make sure everything's working and up to snuff. I'm not going to be doing a lot of testing. I might test 1 or 2 games just to make sure and kind of see a little bit how it compares, but I'm not so interested in how it plays games or how graphically intensive this thing can be, because that's not its design. It's designed to be able to display browsers or applications or whatever across a multitude of screens at the same time in up to 4K, and that's so that's what he's going to be doing. It should help him out quite a bit. Right now we're looking at he's probably either going to be running 4 or 6. We don't know. So we got the card that will handle 6. It's got 6 mini display ports on the back. So we've got cables that will run mini display port to HDMI, which sounds a little weird because you're going from a display port to an HDMI, but it's a digital signal, so it won't be any problem at all. So we'll test that out. We'll make sure that everything, all the drivers get set up. We'll make sure that all the games and everything that I put on here for benchmarking, we take all that stuff off and we get it ready to deliver to Ben so that he can put what he needs to put on it and feel safe that not only will the computer work, but the video card that we're installing will work, and all he has to do is just plug stuff in and get it go. So if you found the video helpful or liked it at all, go ahead and throw a thumbs up on it, please. I appreciate that. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Eventually, I'm trying to get to this 500 mark so I can start getting some affiliate links and helping out that way a little bit. So some of the stuff that I end up buying that I can give you guys a link to, and maybe every once in a while I'll alert you guys to some kind of sale or some kind of special where maybe you get a good deal, and I get a little bit of help for that too. So we'll see how it goes, but that might be the next step. Anyway, I always appreciate doing these videos. I really, really love being able to build a computer for a friend. He's going to get this a lot less expensive than he would have if he would have bought all brand new parts and put everything together. It's a combination of newer parts that I had to order, some parts that I already had here, and so we're going to fix them up pretty good for a good price and have him rolling, and let that not be something he has to worry about when he gets started doing this. So that is all I got. So until the next time we play around with this, hey, you guys do all those YouTube things, and I'll see you later.